This is Remix Report with your hosts, DJ JD and DJ J Spring.
Today's video brought to you by YourDJDrops.com, the nation's hottest DJ drops.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a special interview edition of Remix Report. I'm DJ JD. Today we have a special interview with the EDM Snob from EDMSnob.com. We've been talking about a lot of his articles lately. Of course, he does want to keep his identity secret, so this interview is audio only. So for our video viewers, maybe just sit back and listen in the background. If you're one of our audio podcast listeners, this will be perfect for you. So without further ado, here's the EDM Snob. All right, we'd like to welcome the EDM Snob, or I guess just the Snob, onto Remix Report today. We've reported on a couple of his articles lately, including the one about all the DJ writers, and what was the last one we talked about? The great EDM war has begun, talking about corporate influence on EDM culture. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
I was going to say, probably the best place to start might be if you explain to some of our viewers just the gist of your site.
So, my blog is about kind of how, on one side, there's all these powerful voices. You know, the producers, the agents, the record labels, and the promoters, and all these people who want to sell EDM to you, and they want to sell it to as many people at as high a price as possible. And you know, there's really no voice on the other side for the consumer. There's no powerful voice saying, "Hey, you know, maybe that isn't such a good idea. Maybe we should, you know, back off a little bit. Maybe going this route and selling it to as many people as possible at the highest price isn't really best for everyone." And thus far, there's really been no voice. So I try to provide in my site, you know, the other side of the argument.
Very nice, very nice. So, yeah, this latest article we talked about, The Great EDM War Has Begun, really talks about the corporate influence and how you're seeing more and more of that corporate influence on especially big festivals and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what you're seeing there and how you might see corporations affecting the outcome of this big EDM explosion? Right.
Well, you know, you could really take that article, and I wrote that article specifically so that you could take it two different ways. On the one hand, you could take it as, here are these two big groups of promoters, and they're building themselves up and buying up smaller companies and kind of going to war with each other. And on one side, that is the great EDM war. But really, I think the larger war is all these large entities against the fan and against the average consumer and the average EDM lover, because their primary goal is not necessarily to create good music and great experiences. That's kind of a means to the end of making more money, which is their actual goal. So you could kind of take it either way. But you know, basically my argument, to kind of summarize it, is that corporatizing EDM, specifically EDM promotion in that article, will kill the magic. And you know, it might not happen today, tomorrow, but I think that eventually, unless magic gets a price tag that they can charge for, that it becomes something that, you know, they don't really care about.
So what is that magic of EDM? I mean, we hear about that from so many people, and obviously I think we all kind of know what it is to us, but what is it to you, I guess? Right.
Well, I posted a fan letter the other day that was really, you know, I've been in this business a long time, and I've never really gotten an email like that shook me up as much as this one did, about how you know, this affected this guy's life. And basically the email said that he's never experienced a feeling of acceptance, and you know, I think he said something to the lines of, everyone is equal before the music, or equal before the bass, or something like that. EDM has this very unique characteristic of bringing people together. You know, in rock concerts, it used to kind of be like that, but we've reached the point where, you know, between premium seating, some people are on the floor, they pay extra, some people are in the balcony, and EDM too, people buy bottle service, so they're next to the stage and all this stuff. We're starting to separate people based on class again, and that's bad. because that whole bringing people together and seeing across these lines that we have in our lives, but lines between class, lines between race, lines between gender. EDM has a way of kind of making those lines a little more transparent so that we can see across them.
Yeah, I definitely like that letter a lot. And basically the main thing he said was how every party he'd been to until he went to his first rave, everybody was judging each other. You're just standing there dancing, trying to dance like everybody else so that they didn't judge you. And he went to this one rave, and everybody's there just kind of off doing them, kind of dancing their own way, and everybody's just like looking around at each other, smiling, and no one's judging anybody. They're just there enjoying the music, enjoying themselves, and having a good time. And it was a completely new experience for him. And I think that's one of the things a lot of people like when they go to their first big EDM event is just that. Everybody's just glad to be there, enjoying the music, and kind of doing their own thing, and no one's mad about it.
Well, my question then would be, how is what's going on with the corporate world going to change people's enjoyment of the music, besides the fact that they have to spend more money to do so?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm glad you asked me that, because a lot of people don't really question the things I say because, I'm this big blogger and whoop-de-doo. But, there's no easy answer to that. The reason that I think that that's going to happen, and I don't know for a fact, but the reason I believe it's going to happen is because, like I said, they can't charge for it, and that's not a goal of theirs to create that. And when it comes down to it, if they have to make the choice between, okay, well, we could have more people, coming to this festival if we charge this, or we could make more money if we had less people but we charged a higher price. The fact that fewer people are going to be able to experience that doesn't matter to them. And if they get to the point where they're starting to monopolize certain musicians and getting to the point where they're kind of a record label in themselves and an agency and a promoter, which that kind of conglomerate is not far away. You see with the fall of digital music combined with the accumulation, let's say, of live event promoters, that is not, very far or as far as people think. So to answer your question directly, it's the idea that if they don't have giving people that experience as their goal, which these smaller events do, by and large, that's the reason they do them, because I've been a part of a lot of smaller events, and trust me, they're not about the money. It's one of those all ages things, $20 at the door sometimes, but there's no one getting rich off of those smaller events, especially if there's many of them spread out all over the place.
How do you feel about all these DJs having residencies in Vegas, being in Vegas all the time? I mean, that gets a lot of more people, I guess, to see them, but is it like oversaturating the market, do you think?
Oh, the market is definitely oversaturated. There's going to be a crash very soon. I mean, there's no doubt about that. That's simple economics, and you can see it. I wrote a little bit in this article about how there's this bubble that people have allowed independent promoters to come in and lose their money, as they please by booking some artist. Club owners book it, assuming they're going to make the money back on selling alcohol. They book this big act, and it's created this spiraling up effect of prices. It's going to crash.
Yeah, how do you feel about how much DJs are charging these days?
Well, I can't blame them. I can't say, hey, you shouldn't charge that much, because the reality is that most DJs do not make that much money. It's really a select few that do that, and then they start charging a lot of money. Deadmau5 did a good job of explaining this, with the radius clauses at Ultra. He said that most people could come in, or DJs could come in during Winter Music Conference and spin a bunch of gigs and make their money for the year, basically, because gigs weren't that common at that time. But as far as them charging, how are you going to blame a guy for doing well, charging a lot for his talent? It's our fault for paying that much money, really.
Is Deadmau5 a DJ, by the way?
Oh, we're going to get into this, huh?
I just wanted to hear your opinion. I'm not going to chime in. This is just your opinion.
Well, I identity is a funny philosophical concept. But is he a DJ? No. Does he use DJing to present his music? Yes. But, you know, you can, like you guys said, you can play baseball without being a baseball player. You know, just because he does it, you know, again, it's a means to an end. He's a producer. That's his goal. That's his persona. That's what he wants to be and who he is. He doesn't try to be a DJ because he doesn't try to develop that skill.
I just wanted to get your opinion on that while we had you here. But back to the whole EDM thing versus corporations. Do you think this will actually affect the music at all that's coming out, or is this kind of just separate into the concert area?
Well, yes, and I'll tell you why. Because if there's a gold rush in EDM, if people see a lot of money to be made in it, then more people are going to make music, and in the end, you know, you're going to get some terrible music made, but you'll get more music made in general, which by definition, a certain percentage will be good music. And that's good for the genre as a whole. You know, you're going to get more musical progression the more people that are making it. Now, when you start to close it off by charging all these high prices, having this high barrier to entry, that's bad. At the same time, when you start to... I wrote an article about Cedric Gervais Molly, you know, bringing attention to the drug aspect of the scene. You know, when you have a legal crackdown on the scene, that's bad too, because there's fewer events, and people are hearing the music less, there's less interest, less music is being produced. So I think that the more people are able to access the music, that the more music will be made, and that will make the music better in the long term.
Well, you mentioned Molly. How come everyone got so mad at Madonna, yet I never heard anyone blame Cedric Gervais for making the song?
Oh, I definitely did. But I'll explain why people got so mad at Madonna. Because it was such a transparent jump into electronic and into, you know, the whole Ultra Music Festival appearance. It was such a transparent attempt to lift up her sagging career. It's like, hey, this is popular. Let me jump in on electronic and try and act like I'm cool and hip and new. And here we go. I'm going to make this Molly reference.
But to be fair, Madonna's done electronic music. This wasn't the first time she's done electronic music. She's done it. I know, I mean, it's been remixed. Her music has been remixed a lot. She's definitely dabbled in that genre before. I don't know if it's fair to say that was her attempt to jump into it. Yeah,
you know, you have a point. She has dabbled in the electronic music, you know, in terms of her sound, but so has, you know, people like, you know, Flo Rida and mainstream rappers and people like that. But she never got into the culture before this year.
That's fair.
And that's what she's taken advantage of. She's taken advantage of the popularity. You know, the music, she's always kind of influenced that. And as a musician, I can respect that her willingness to evolve her sound is not limited by any certain genre. But I mean, this was just taking it too far. You know, you're over 50. Like, there's no reason to try and do that. It made it look ridiculous.
How do you feel about Flo Rida jumping on all these tracks?
Well, you know, it's one of those things, man. I can't blame an artist for trying to sell records. You know, it's our fault for buying it. You know, the music he makes, I like it. I mean, I respect it. I don't think it's electronic dance music, but I think it's good. You know, I think it's catchy. I think it's interesting. But I mean, he doesn't try and show up on EDC stage and say, "Hey, who's going to drop acid?" Like, that would be ridiculous. No, he doesn't do it. He stays true to who he is, and that's fine.
So I can definitely see some of your arguments, and you made me see things differently than I've seen them before, because I always had the attitude. I always kind of looked at the EDM scene and the people who've been in there for a while. I always kind of pictured them as wanting to really push the music. They really believed in the music. They really loved EDM, and any chance they got, they'd want their friends to hear it, and they loved what they heard, and they wanted to spread it. But at the same time, I've seen these same people kind of get mad that, all right, now everyone else is listening to it. I'm afraid it's going to get ruined. And I understand your points about the corporations with the shows. I never really looked at it that way, as now fewer people are going to get to go to these big shows. So I can definitely understand that argument. But I was always a little hesitant with the whole keeping it real thing. But I definitely do see a lot of what you said.
Well, let me just say, there is always a caveat. No one's opinion is absolute, and especially within this whole backlash of EDM's popularity, there is some, of a non-admirable goal. People want, to have popular things to themselves. Whenever you discover a new artist, you're like, I showed you that song, and then when your friends start showing it to other people, you're like, oh yeah, but I showed you that. People want to be like the source of cool and popular things. So there is a little bit of elitism that is counterproductive in there. So I don't want to make it seem like it's this, high and mighty, admirable knight in shining armor goal completely. But at the same time, I think there's something very important about preserving the kind of unique characteristics of EDM that will become watered down if it's just passed along without any reference to those unique characteristics.
So if things keep going the way they're going right now, where do you see EDM ending up in 2 years or 5 years?
In 5 years, it'll be controlled by corporate entities. There will be a backlash along that point, and some underground events will pop up, which will be good. But eventually, it will be corporatized. People aren't going to really do anything about it. They're not going to organize and keep it from being corporatized because people really don't care that much until things are already bad, and by then it's too late. So that's kind of the way things are going to go. There's not too much we can do about it. My recourse was to start a blog, so you can do that. But it's one of those things that it's tough. But I think that eventually there's going to be places that people can still experience the magic, but by and large, it's going to be a corporate entity.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. We really do enjoy your blog and your writing and all the insight you do bring to the EDM scene right now. Definitely a lot of interesting, thought-provoking stuff. So.
Most of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate how realistic you are about the situation and how you can think both ways, and I don't know, you just present your arguments in a way that I respect. So thanks again for coming on.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me, guys.
RemixReport.com